So first we will do the take to the refuge Sangye Zoma. So Sangye Chedan Zoye Chonam La Chanju Part Nane Jazo Je Nage Jejen Give Zona Ke Drola Benjire Sangye Drobara Sangye Chedan Zoye Chonam La Chanju Pardo Nane Jazo Nage Jejen Give Zona Drola Benjire Sangye Drobara Sangye Chedan Zoye Chonam Chanju Pardo Dani Gazoji, Nage Chushe Give Sonam Ki Chola Benjire Sang Jubara. Now we will reflect on the four immeasurables. So I will read, I will recite it. So we can all recite together or just reflect upon the meaning. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings rejoice in the well-being of others. May all beings live in peace, free from greed and hatred. So we will do the short mandala. Sa xin be ye chu xin me do zhang zhi zhe lin xie yin de gan ba de san ye xin do mi de we wa ye zhe we nam da xian lo jue ba le shu yi na mang gu zhe ran na da lang gam ne ya da ra ya mi One moment. Oh yeah. So greetings to everyone. So I think this is the third follow-up to the single session Lojong single session mind training practice by Chim and Namkha. I think this is the third and the last third follow-up and the last one. So just want to remind all of us that today, so in the Tibetan lunar calendar, we consider, so it is the Sagadawa, which is otherwise known as the Wesak of Wesak, according to the Tibetan calendar, the Tibetan lunar royal calendar, and so we consider this as a very important month for three reasons. Firstly, because Buddha Shakyamuni was born on this month, and secondly, because he got enlightened in this month, and thirdly, because he entered parinirvana in this month. So, unlike conventional worldview, we regard Buddha's parinirvana. In simple words, the death of the Buddha. We kind of sort of celebrate it, commemorate in the sense that Buddha didn't pass away as we ordinary human beings do, but that he entered into the nirvana. And so therefore, it is a very important aspect of Buddha's 12 great deeds that we should be reflecting upon. Now, and in this month, so these three incidents happened, and of the three, the first one, the day Lord Buddha, our Lord Buddha Shakyamuni, was born is today, according to the Tibetan lunar calendar. So it is a very auspicious day for all of us, especially for you, because you are at daytime for you, and it's literally the don't nighttime for us. So this auspicious day is already finishing. But we are very fortunate this morning for us in India. We are very fortunate this morning to receive the preparatory initiation of the Genresic Avalokiteshvara empowerment via the internet by none other than His Holiness, who we consider as the manifestation of Genresic in human forms. And I think a number of you have also watched and received the initiation from His Holiness this morning as well. So I think we should rejoice in that. Now that being said, so today is the day Buddha Shakyamuni was born, according to the Buddhist Tibetan Royal Buddhist calendar. And so the reason Buddha Shakyamuni came into this world is, of course, to dispel the ignorance that is within all of us, that the ignorance which is dragging all of us into the samsara over and over and over again. And no matter how hard we try to come out of samsara, our ignorance, all of our afflictions, afflictive emotions, led by the ignorance, is dragging us down back to where we first started. So it has always been going round and round and round and round, a cyclic. It has been a cyclic existence, cyclic existence for us. And so it is important to realize that we are in this cyclic existence, that we are sick, that we are suffering. And that is the reason why Buddha spoke suffering, sickness, misery of all the four noble truths. He spoke of the sickness, the misery, the suffering first, because it is important for all of us to recognize that we are sick. Unless we realize that something is wrong within us, something is wrong with us, unless we realize and unless we accept our mistakes, there is no way we can improve. So therefore, it's essential that it is essentially important that we realize there is something wrong. And of course, there is a lot of errors, a lot of erroneous things going on in our lives, but that is all external, and all of that comes from within, from our reaction to all the actions that is happening outside, which is triggered by what we call the three poisons, simply known as attachment, hatred, and ignorance, and which all of the three of which is again triggered by none other than the ignorance, the delusional ignorance. So once we uproot ignorance, like a trunk of a tree, when you remove the trunk of the tree with all its branches and fruits and leaves and everything falls. So ignorance. So this is what we are trying to uproot. And in order to uproot the ignorance, there are two, the axe or the saw to cut the ignorance, to uproot the ignorance. There's only one sort of solution, which is the incisive, the penetrative insight into the reality of all phenomena, because it is not knowing the reality, not knowing the conventional reality, what's going on, as well as the ultimate reality, what things are. So once we realize what are the conventional realities and the ultimate realities, once we see the truth, then we are, as we say, the truth sets us free. And but in order to see the truth, as we all know, seeing the truth, we always say the truth sets us free. But then most of the time when we see the truth, especially like, for example, in conventionally speaking, when we see the news, the news might be biased here and there, but still it is somewhat true. Even though the interpretation of the incident may be wrong, may be falsified here and there, but the incident did happen, right? In the news, even in the news, as flawed as it is, the news is the source for information, for facts, even though it may not be wholly factually correct, but it is a source for facts. So it is based on a certain incident. So my point is, when we see the truth from the news, most of the time, instead of setting us free, they actually start to trouble us more. This is where, so in the same way, penetrative insight alone may be too strong of a dosage for us to set us free. So what we need is to dilute it a little bit with the conventional bodhicitta. So ultimate bodhicitta, or penetrative insight, penetrative insight, incisively cutting through the foliage of ignorance, also needs to be handled with the care of conventional bodhicitta, because without conventional bodhicitta, the dosage, as I mentioned earlier, the dosage will be too strong. The sword will be too sharp for us without the what do you call that? The handle, I think, or the sheath to protect us. So, in other words, bodhicitta is the ultimate bodhicitta. So normally when we talk about bodhicitta, I think I mentioned it earlier, when we talk about bodhicitta, we are usually referring to conventional bodhicitta, not the ultimate bodhicitta. So conventional bodhicitta is the, as we all remember, the conviction, the aspirational conviction to set all sentient beings free from suffering, and to deliver all of them into complete enlightenment. So that is the bodhicitta. That is the mindset. So that is known as the conventional bodhicitta. So even though ultimate reality, or the ultimate bodhicitta is the actual tool, or the soul, the actual tool to axe down the trunk of ignorance, but we also need the handles of the conventional bodhicitta as well. So that being said, this particular practice, mind training in a single sitting or single session, is a very short and very concise and quite detailed practice. And it's a very practical book. There isn't much technical terms here and there. So, which has three sort of divisions, three divisions. The first being the preliminary or preparatory, and the second being the main teaching. or the main content, and the third being the concluding practice. So we have been covering the middle, the main practice. We already covered. Within the main practice, there's the giving and the taking. Giving your goodness, your wholesomeness, your merits, your virtues to all sentient beings, including, of course, your material needs, your material positions and everything to all sentient beings, and taking in all the negativities of the mother sentient beings upon us, giving and taking. And then the emboldening or enriching or emboldening of the practice of two bodhicittas, the conventional and the ultimate. So far, we have covered both of them, and I summarizingly, I have explained what the two conventional bodhicittas are again today. Now we will go with where the text leads us. So let me read from the Tibetan first. So Tongkhor tun chongla tangma workom temba tone chisam negi parto sha hele tangwar simjela ningje komshin yewe zawangor chao. So we have been to so we are at the part where it says initially you should meditate in many short sessions. So if you are so that will be the very last line. If you're watching the screen, that would be the very last line. Initially, you should meditate in many short sessions, and when you have gained stability, you can remain there as long as your mind stays focused. When you wish to rise, cultivate compassion toward all sentient beings, and then dedicate the merit. So I think many of you are have been Buddhist and practitioner for quite a long time, and so I think most of you came into Buddhism because of meditation. So I'm not going to emphasize or but we all know that when we start meditation, it's important to start short ones, short meditation, short sessions of meditation. I think if you have watched the transmission, the empowerment given by His Holiness this morning, His Holiness explained that in the beginning, start with like 2 seconds or 5 seconds, and then gradually increase the duration of your meditation, and then you can extend it. So this is very important. We say in Tibetan. So Tun is the session, and Mangu means many sessions, and Yun is duration, many sessions, short durations. So that is a mantra we say. Our teachers tell us when we do the meditation. So many sessions, short durations. So it's similar to any training, any physical training you do. You start with you start by doing the minimal minimal count as you could, minimal repetition as you could, and then gradually you start increasing the load. Otherwise, what happens is if you stay too long, in a session without properly focused, what happens is you become you always get distracted, and you do, instead of doing concentrative meditation, you keep doing distractive meditations for years and years and years. And as we know, practice makes perfection. So when we practice with distracted mindset, year after year over year, we become very good at being distracted during meditation. So even though we may be doing meditation for hours and hours on end, we are always doing it with a distracted mindset. And so that would be like, so if we were to do anything, draw, painting, paint a drawing, or write something, whatever, if we are distracted, we will not be able to complete it. It will be disastrous for any action, any activity you take. So it's important to shorten the meditation as much as you can in the beginning. So also in the beginning, you also need to sort of like fortify yourself in a sort of in an enclosure that is free from distractions. So normally you can have a meditation room or meditation kind of like space within your room, so that when you are in that space, that hallowed space, you are that you're supposed you are not distracted easily. So we can always dedicate a certain space within our small room for meditation or for doing any Dharma practices. So when you have gained in stability, you can remain there as long as your mind stays focused. And another thing is, usually our teachers tells us that you have, when the meditation is going very smoothly and very well, you should stop meditating. Because this is like this is like, I don't know if you watch soap operas. Sometimes they can be, so what they do is they have a cliffhanger, right? So at the end, so it gets very exciting when there's a cliffhanger at the end. So when the meditation gets exciting, is not the right word, but when the meditative state is going very smoothly and as you want it to be, I mean, after a certain duration, set of duration, you should stop the meditation when it's getting very, for the lack of better words, I will say exciting. So when it gets when it gets the most exciting part, you should stop the meditation. What happens is, when you are hanging in that cliff, so you would want to come back and do the meditation again. So it makes it more enticing. I don't know if that would be an appropriate word. Then what happens is, when your mind is focused, okay, now when you wish to rise, you will gradually come out of the meditative equipoise, and then cultivate compassion for all sentient beings. What we call that tunsam, on session and off session, right? Tun is on session or session, during session, and tunsam is off session. So normally we have on session and off session practices. So unless you are doing a retreat or anything like that, normally the recital of mantra and all these kind of things would be considered during like off session practices. So during the off session practice you would be doing prostrations, reciting mantras, reading books, and most importantly, we have this tradition within our lineage. When I say our lineage, I mean in the Tibetan Buddhism, So we used to read biographies of great masters of the past. So when we do that, we are inspired. So biography, we call them Namkha in Tibetan. So Namkha doesn't come even an inch near to the word biography in Tibetan. So in Tibetan, biography would be something like Loyu or Dung or something like that. But Namthar is totally different. So, but we use the word Namthar to depict, to refer to biographies of great masters. So Namthar means, Thar is one part of the word Tharpa, or liberation, or nirvana. And Nam is usually a adjective. I don't know what do you call that, for something like very, very liberated, or utterly liberated, or something like that. So Namthar means, when we read the Namthar, when we read the biographies of the past masters, we know, we learn how they practice. So it's very similar to reading about inspirational stories of great successful men these days. We sometimes read those books, so success books and like that. So it's very motivational. So most of the great masters, they have gone through very much hardship, sometimes harder than ourselves. And even though they face all the difficulties and all the obstacles are there, they still manage to get over all of that and then reach their success. So it's a very inspirational story. And then it also tells us what particular step we should take when such and such incidents occur. So it's very enlightening. So back to why it's called Namtar. Tarba, as I said earlier, it means liberation or nirvana. So what happens is, when we read their books, we are inspired to be liberated. The seed of liberation, the seed of aspiring for liberation is implanted in our heart or our mind when we read the books of the biographies of great masters. So this is something we do during the off session. It's very helpful. And then a number of times when we read the books, biographies of the great masters who go through so much hardship, for example, like we all know about the Milarepa, right, who went through a lot of hardship. But then there's the story of Marpa, the teacher of Milarepa, who went into so much hardship himself. He has to travel from Tibet to India. All that is a different story. So at that time, there's no airplane or anything. So you have to go there, learn the new language. And then I think because he came from Tibet, which is at that time not a very kind of a sort of educated society, not considered an educated society, how the intellectuals of India of that time must have ridiculed him. And you have to go through, what we talk about that a lot, right? One thing nowadays in the classroom, in school, kids are always being I forgot the term. So bullied, yeah. Kids are always being bullied. So this kind of thing actually did happen to Tibetan masters. So if you try to read between the lines, if you have a good understanding of Tibetan literature, how to read Tibetan well, grasping of Tibetan, then you will read it between that. Of course, there are great masters in India, but then there are, a number of ordinary people just like us trying to provoke us at every moment, at any given moment. So they've always been kind of sort of ridiculing and molesting people who come from faraway lands where there are no scholars or any wise men heard of before. So we can all, but he would persevere through all of that. But that's not just Marpa. And we all know I think most of us know the story of Marpa's teacher, Naropa, who has been ridiculed so much by, if you look at it from a conventional way, he has been ridiculed by, he is actually a scholar in today's time. He is a very highly revered and respected professor of the most esteemed university in India, Nalanda. And then he would go to see his teacher, and his teacher, Naropa's teacher, Telopa, is a beggar, is a fisherman, and it's he is living in rags, and anyway. So I have been. So coming back to the point, important to read the biographies of past masters. That way we are motivated. A number of times when we are kids, we don't know how to read the especially the fine lines, and we don't even know how to read we don't have our grasping of Tibetan literature is not that good when we were kids. So usually we were told stories by our teachers who have a great grasping of Tibetan literature. So, and the stories are very inspiring and very moving, and especially my father, he's a scholar, Tibetan scholar. So he would always tell us, every night, I think, he always tells a story of different masters. And he does it in a very convincingly moving way. And then I think that is the first implant of liberation or nirvana seed ever. That was by my father. And so my father was my teacher as well. And then of course, when I came to the monastery, I learned a lot as well. But we didn't have that much of a good fortune to spend that much time with our teachers during off sessions. We always have our classes, but off session, we don't have much time because our teachers are so busy. They have to attend so many classes, so like 10 classes a day. So they don't have time to do small talk. Okay, now go to the next part. So we cultivate compassion toward all sentient beings and then dedicate the merit, right? It's important to, when you come out of the meditation, it's important to envisage compassion for all sentient beings. Because especially when we do the penetrative insight meditation, the wisdom aspect of when we meditate on emptiness, when we meditate too much on emptiness. So this is like taking a very strong dosage of medicine. So what happens is for ordinary beginner or maybe intermediary practitioner, it would be, when we focus too much on the empty side of phenomena, we feel like things are empty, things have no value, things have no point. And then it's important, like it doesn't really matter what's going on, what's happening. And you, to the point that you become the suffering and the problems of all this mother sentient beings become irrelevant to you. So that's why it's important to come back to the compassion side. It's important to bring the sheath back. It's important to bring the handle, touch the handle, because after cutting the tree, if we touch the sword directly, we might cut our hand, because we have been leaning too much into the empty aspect, the empty part. So that's why it's important to bring compassion, cultivate compassion, and then dedicate the merit, of course. So I don't know if I mentioned it earlier. Dedication is very important, because without which our merits will be destroyed by the negative afflictions, especially the negative emotions coming from hatred and from that aspect will destroy the merit, and then whatever you have done for the whole day will all be gone, all be shredded down. So that's why if you dedication is like investing. So you invest it in the most trustable, the safest bank of merits in the whole of universe, which is the bank of the Buddhas, the merit bank of the Buddhas. So you invest it with them. you deposited it with them, you deposit your matters with them, and it's always there, and it keeps giving you what is the word for that? Interest, and so it's always safe there. Okay, now the next one. Mushi to Kuzu Tandamile Ranjo the Combarjune, Tamji Matrujan, was of Yumazam to Demba the Shemba Chos. So during the actual meditation, you should alternate the practice of the conventional and the ultimate awakening minds. So this is also very important during meditation. So if you are meditating for half an hour, dedicate 15 minutes for conventional and another 15 minutes for ultimate bodhicitta or ultimate awakening minds. So it's the same. You try to balance the. You have to balance each other out. So you're not going too much into the empty side, or you're not going too much into the realist side. As your familiarity grows, even if you cannot accomplish everything, you can engage in the practice of giving and taking at a level of mere illusion-like conventional reality, free of belief in substantial reality and clinging. So once you become familiar with the practice, then even though, just by doing a few practices, we will not be able to reach the goal. But the fact is, the more you practice, the more familiar you become. So we talk about physical health, physical fitness. So the more you meditate, the more you exercise, so the more you practice, the fitter you get mentally. And so you become familiar of your mental frameworks and the mental map. So so normally we say, I can see everything without my eyes closed, when you memorize something. So when you familiarize yourself with the practice well enough, then you become, even though you have not reached the goal yet, even though the practice has the the notion and the attitude has not become instinctive with you, but it becomes much more effortless. To become, the irony of effortless practice is that you have to put on more efforts. The more effort you put in, the less effort, the more effortless it will become. Okay. So giving and taking at the level of mere illusion like conventional reality. So it's important to bring, even though things have no realistic or inherent existence, or things have no existence of its own, it's also it does have an existence, and that existence is like is illusion-like. So we talked about that earlier. It's like a balloon that is filled only with helium, so that if you were just to blow on it, it will, even though it is a large balloon, but if we were just to, so like a large balloon, all the realities that we see in the world are something like that. It seems large, it seems real, but if you were to blow open on it, it will just it will just sway. So conventional reality, free of belief in substantial reality and clinging. Okay, so now the third part is the third part is the conclusion. Sumba jeni sa yu sum to sum shebe. Yu sum la tene to sum keshin te gewe zawa sum do kide megi yus so duba la de ja gewa da simjeng de ja rangi ningi ke to lang rangi lyu long je gewe zawa da jeba simjeng tamje la tang. Ra simjeng de ja rangi ningi ke to lang rangi lyu long je gewe zawa da jeba simjeng tamje la tang simjeng tamje de ja mi gewe zawa da sums. Meduba la shedang dang chela sa timo gewa intention the completion the nawe to the net. So the concluding practice says talks about the three objects and the three poisons, which indicates that. So I will just read. Indicates that it is in the relation to the three objects that the three poisons come into being. So something that you like. There is an object that is closer to you. There is an object that is distant to you, and then there is an object that is irrelevant to you. And to the close object, to the object that is close to you, your heart, you are attached. To the object that is distant to you, you have repulsion, or hatred and aversion. And to the object that is ignorant, that you are ignorant of, to the object that is irrelevant to you, you are ignorant of it. You are ignorant. You have no idea what's going on with things that is irrelevant to you. So the three objects and the three poisons. So from the three objects rises the three. When the three poisons, when we come in contact with the three objects, then the three poisons start to rise within us. So the three objects that is in relation to the three objects that the three poisons come into being, and you should transform these into the three roots of virtue. For example, when you experience attachment towards attractive forms, which are objects of your eyes, you should take into core of your heart the attachments of other sentient beings. So, so what attachment does is attachment grasps, right? Grasping. That is the nature of attachment. That is the sort of the definition, simple definition of attachment would be grasping, being tethered to, stuck with. So when attachment arises towards things that you are close with, think of all the attachments. Think of the attachments that all sentient beings have. Think of all the attachments that the sentient beings have, and try to take that in. In other words, try to grab that in, grasp that in, attach that to yourself. So what you see here is usually when attachment arises, it's spontaneous. It comes from here to there, right? I'm attached to this. You would want to say, this thing is attached to me. You say, I'm attached to this, or I'm attached to her, or I'm attached to him. You won't say, I'm attached by him. You may say, I'm attached to him, or so you get the point. Usually you are attached to that person. It's not the other way around. But what we do here is we attach ourselves to the others. When we take in all the grasping, all the attachments or all the faults of sentient beings into ourselves, unto ourselves, we attach ourselves, we hook ourselves with the attachment and other negativities that other sentient beings have. We stick with attachment for the time being. So, you know, we grab hold of all the attachments. We grab hold of attachments of all sentient beings and try to take all of that in. So it's like I don't know if you have seen if you have read the Vedic in the Indian mythology, there's a narrative where Lord Shiva, Lord Vishnu, drinks the poison of all the three universes, and so consumes all the. So similarly, we consume all the negativities of the mother sentient beings unto us. So instead of letting our attachments flow towards others, we control our attachments. We attach our attachments with the attachments of all sentient beings and take that onto ourselves. So we kind of consume and sort of transmute it. So when Lord Shiva, in that story, in that mythology, when Lord Shiva took all the poisons onto himself, then the world was saved from doomsday, because, otherwise, if the poison was to spread in the universe, then all the living beings will die instantaneously. So you take all of the negatives of sentient beings. So what happens here is this attachment is not spontaneous. It is not, you are not attached uncontrollably. True, attachment arises from your mind, your heart, uncontrollably. At the next instant, instead of setting your attachment free, you control your attachment and you use the hook of your attachment to attach that with the attachment of all sentient beings and tag that in. So when an attachment comes out from you spontaneously, you can see it's uncontrollable. When you love something or someone, or you are madly in love, or whatever you call that. So that is uncontrollable. But when you inculcate loving compassion practices upon others, that is different, because you are in control now. It doesn't flow out uncontrollably. So take into the core of your heart the attachments of other sentient beings. So there's a similar practice in the tantric practice. There's a similar. I don't know if I should say everything, but you take the 3 poisons of all sentient beings within yourself, and then make it all kind of like disappear into the, make it expand into the vastness of vast space of emptiness. So imagine that as you give your body, wealth, and root of virtue to all sentient beings, all beings come to possess the root virtue of non-attachment. That's it. Midubala Shedanda Tela, Timukewaya, Midubala Shedanda Telas, Timukewaya Tation to Goms, Tation to Naveta, the nature, the Jero, the Lugi, the Jepa, the Sumsum Chunga, and Gomba Chaos. So, so toward the repulsive, imagine that you are free from aversion, and contemplate in a similar manner toward those who give rise to delusion. So this is ignorance. So to those who okay, I can't find the perfect word for that. So to the 3 sort of objects, to those that you're close, to those you are distant, and to those that you are those that is irrelevant to you. So to the repulsive, or to those you have hatred, you imagine that you are free from aversion, and contemplate in a similar manner toward those who give rise to delusion, or who you don't give any, you don't care all what happens to them. So to those you try to give caring, and you contemplate on giving care to those you don't care. So likewise, you should contemplate the same manner with each of the 3 poisons arises with respect to whatever occurs, such as sound to ear, odor to the nose, taste to the tongue. So you replicate the same with the other, the rest of the 5 senses, the 5 sensations. Now again, there is a line from Junju, the Lojong Tsawa. Jolam Gundu Tsigi Jangs. 제반님 정화도 누가도 녀와도 졸람 탐제도 semjen 탐제게 동해 군중 탐제 다단이도 달라면 버다 풍화 주다 당고버 매버 다당고버 매버라 땡라랑 저와 규칙 다기 류롱쇼다 개와 탐제 semjen은 멤버 규칙 남다 제외연된 탐제 다단이도 중화 규칙 제 거야 and jaro chose. So this is very powerful practice. In all actions trained by the means of the words. So the words that the line, the root lines of Lojong is referring to, is the line that one should be mindful of the what we call the Jalam, which means activity or behavior or activity probably here. So which is a daily activity or everyday activity, that is standing up or when you are awake, standing up, sitting down, and sleeping. So these are known as the three sort of activities or three. So our daily activities usually consist of these three. Either you are doing something standing up or sitting down, or you are just lying down. You should recite whatever is most appropriate. So most appropriate. So the words during the activities, during your daily activities, which comprise of any of these three: standing, sitting, or sleeping, recite those mantras. If you are going to sleep, then recite the mantra before going to sleep, before going to bed, and then you can recite you go into the sleep mode, sleep realm with these with this mentality, this attitude. What happens is in the 51, let's say, mental factors that Buddhism talks about, that is described in the Buddhist psychology. There is Shengyurshi, which means the four, I don't know the exact term, it's something like four transformational mindsets. So one of them is doubt is one of them, and regret is one of them, and one of them is the sleeping. Sleeping is considered, the sleep is considered a mental factor. And so when you sleep with good motivation, with a good thought, simply put, when you sleep with a good thought, if you sleep for 8 hours, 10 hours, 9 hours, all those 8 or 10 hours become, you keep accumulating merits. If you sleep with a bad thought, all these 8 hours become, you might say, oh, I've just been sleeping, I've been doing nothing, but actually you have been doing lot of bad things, accumulating negative deeds. So sleep is transformational. Sleep is volatile, so it can change into whatever you set it into. And then if you sleep without any thought, or then it becomes all timu, the ignorance. So there is nothing, no good, no bad. So okay, so sleep is done. Let's talk about standing and sitting. So when you are either doing something standing or sitting, like just now, so you should mutter to yourself, may the suffering and their origins of all beings ripen upon me this very instant. May the self suffer downfall. May the self and the real entities become no more and be lost forever. And may my body, wealth, and roots of virtue ripen upon sentient beings. So this is giving and taking. May my body, wealth, and roots of virtue ripen upon sentient beings. May sentient beings attain all higher qualities of the path and the results of these at this very instant. Your actions will then follow after your speech, and it is said the benefit of these realizations will then arise swiftly in your mind. So what happens here is you undergo difficult, you undergo hardship, you purposely, intentionally, you go into, you undergo hardship intentionally, so that that's why His Holiness sometimes, many times His Holiness say, if you want to be really selfish, then be a wise selfish, intelligent selfish person. So this is where it comes from, like, so if you, when you undergo hardship like this, what happens is you will be able to deal with later hardships in day-to-day life. Because as I said earlier, this hardship is something that you go into intentionally. It is not something that has risen spontaneously. So if someone was to give you, let's say, um, shocking surprise, then all of a sudden you are too excited, right? Because it comes from the other side. But if you were privy to the birthday surprise that somebody is going to give you, then even though you might act like you are surprised, but you are actually not surprised, because you have underwent you underwent into the preparation. You are privy to the preparation of the uh, good or bad surprise that the other person is going to give you. So the element of surprise doesn't work on you because you already are privy to that. So when you are privy to the suffering of all the sentient beings, so all the sentient beings, let's say like suffering of the 6 billion human beings, or the 200 over 260 or something countries in the world. So some citizens are going through starvation. Some citizens are going through war torn, racial discrimination, and of course at this moment everyone is going through either suffering directly from COVID-19 or its domino effect. So there is a plethora of possibility, plethora of sufferings out there. So when you inculcate all of these sufferings to you with intentionally, with you in the control, this is similar to, let's say, going through a military drill. When you are in the military, they train you very hard, you have to go through lots of hardship, difficulties. And when you go through all the physical hardship and mentally also, what happens is you become hardened. And then when you are actually in the scene of action, which is usually much more frightening, then you are, quite well prepared. And then as you fight more wars and things like that, you become seasoned, what we call seasoned fighter, right? Seasoned politician, seasoned. So we season ourselves with suffering of all the sentient beings. Don't think of that as all sentient beings as different people. Think of that as we undergo all types of suffering, because when we say all sentient beings are going through different types of suffering, all different types of suffering, mentally, spiritually even, and habitually, verbally. Some people are not able to speak, not able to express. Some people are going through physical, a number of people are going through extreme physical hardship. So when we go through all forms of suffering that is suffered by sentient beings, what happens is we season ourselves, we groom ourselves, so coming back to the point of selfish, wise selfish person. So when we groom ourselves, when we season ourselves with all the hardship, and when we undergo all the difficulties, we become seasoned sufferer. So suffering can no longer make us suffer more. In that sense, I mean, even though that is not the real goal, but that makes you kind of strong, and that makes you, if you're really selfish, then become a wise selfish. That's what His Holiness always jokingly said. But I think many people do take that literally, and that is not the right approach. Anyway, so now the very last word is 대달 잘배 나게 제수 이슈는 유도 기회 고바 유에서 로전 핀지 제자와 바야 나판 백경부 침 남과 잡아 침빌 제바 gellen 남파다 녀바 주지. This work entitled A Single Session of Mind Training was composed by the abbot of Nathang, the great Chim Namkha. May the excellence contained in this equal space. Thank you very much. So we completed the mind training in a single session today. So it's been very auspicious. On this very auspicious day, we are able to complete a very auspicious book, and hopefully this will be helpful for all of us. It has been very helpful for me, because in order to mercy. So you can go on, have questions, please.
I had a hi. Sorry.
Hello,
I have
Jay.
a question. Hello. Hi. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Yeah. So I was trying to meditate on a table, both conventionally and ultimately, because following your comparison of looking at things on a molecular level and seeing that they're not really there because they're included in
so you're going on and off. Can you please repeat the question?
I was trying to meditate on the ultimate reality of a table. Using what you said last week about breaking it into its parts and trying to identify it, and you couldn't because it's made out of molecules and you couldn't really find the table. But when I was trying to think about what a table means then conventionally, how would you explain like what a table, when you're trying to just have it be a label conventionally, then how do you look at the table then? I don't quite, I mean, not that I understand ultimate reality at all, but I just was confused about what it would look like conventionally without.
Got it. As you got it. So as you just said, when you dive in, when you dissect, there is no tableness within the table. So you can't find anything in the ultimate sense. But in a conventional sense, you can find a table, or a table is something that you can put your mug on, a table that you can write, you can put your book and read there. You can put something on it. That is a table. So that is table as it could get in the conventional sense. So that is the only reality in the conventional sense the table is and the table serves. So it is something that is usable for things to be put open. So that is the table. This is the notion of a table.
And then obviously you don't add on to that like, oh, it's a wonderful table, it's so pretty, my grandfather made it. So that is what you leave off when you think about the conventionality.
So that is what we call embellishments. So we don't like mundane things, right? So we want to we don't like simple things. We want to, even though we say, okay, we like to be simple and all that, but we want to embolden things. You want to embellish things. And then so we have, okay, when something doesn't make any, even if something doesn't have any value, we try to put a value, we try to affix a value upon something by saying, oh, this was given by my grandfather, or this and that. And of course, from a conventional point of perspective, you can always say, oh, this table has such an intricate artwork and this and that. But all this is, these are all embellishments from an ultimate perspective, because it doesn't, with or without all this the beautiful artwork, this can still be serve as a table, serve as something to put things on, a mug or anything, any object to put on. So it is a table nonetheless, with or without all the artwork, all the attachments, all the all the history and all the heritage and whatever that you would attach it with the table. With or without it, it still remains a table. So from the ultimate perspective, these are all regarded as embellishments.
Well, because you then get attached to the table, which I'm assuming is not a part of either convention. Well, I guess it's not a.
Got it.
It's still a part of conventional, though, right?
Right. So let me explain it this way, right? I think it's quite popular. So a lot of teachers do that. So I'm just gonna repeat what they already said. So let's say, let's say you are in a beautiful you're in a beautiful natural wonderland, so that everything is, there's water flushing, water gushing, and beautiful trees and everything. So it's a very, very beautiful place. And in that beautiful place, all of a sudden there is a ferocious tiger running behind you. And what do you do at that instant? If the tiger is ferociously running towards you, you would, of course, will be frightened, and then you would start running, and you start running and running and running, and then you reach a cliff, and you have no option but either you have to jump and die, or stay for a few moments and let the tiger eat you and then die. So there are no option. And all of a sudden, because you're so scared, your heart is thumping, and maybe you are exclaiming something, some words, mumbling some words. Your partner or friend or someone comes to you and wakes you up from the sleep, from the dream, from the nightmare that you are having. And then you realize everything, all of this is just a bad dream. So what happens is, so everything that happened, the beautiful scenario and the frightening scenario where the tiger chases you and attacks you, all this is conventional reality. So all this is real in the dream. So within the dream, you have no option but to run, because within the dream, if you do not run and say it's a dream, the tiger will eat you up and you will be gone. So you need to run. But at the same time, it is not real. It is just a dream. What we really need to do is try to wake ourselves up from the dream, rather than either running or not running from the tiger. So no matter how much we run, we are going to reach the cliff, and then we have to jump from the cliff, or get absorbed by eaten by the tiger. There is no other option. So what happens is, we need to wake ourselves up. And so this is what we try to do with the practice of the ultimate meditating on the ultimate reality. So we are grooming ourselves. We are training ourselves to be able to wake up when we are going through a nightmare. So that is the thing.
Thank you very much.
Rinpoche? Rinpoche?
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Please go on. Hi.
It's Debbie. Hi, it's Debbie.
Oh,
I don't
hi,
know
Debbie.
if my name is
Mm-hmm.
I'm the one who calls in with the other callers. I don't know if my name is listed, but it just doesn't say hello.
Yeah, just your phone number comes up. Yeah, please go on.
Okay. I want to continue that conversation about science and Buddhism. I know that the Dalai Lama is working with the science community to get them to understand things. He had a Science and Mind Institute, and he asked one
Mind
of the
and Life,
evolutionary,
yeah.
Mind and Life, and he asked one of the evolutionary theorists, "Do you believe that the sun possesses consciousness?" And he said no.
The what? Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
and I don't know if you saw that moment, but I was very concerned, and you could see the look on the Dalai Lama was, okay, we've got a lot of work to do in awakening this all the concepts of interdependence and dependent arising that I think would help, to understand this incredible interconnectedness. And I don't know if you're aware, but in the wake of this pandemic, there's a rush to become a multi-planet species and essentially colonize Mars. I hope this isn't getting too far out there for you, or way off the topic here. But do you think that Buddhism and these practices can evolve if we move closer and closer to science?
Buddhism and what? What was the other thing?
And our practices, our Buddhist practices, and our
practices.
And our yes, and our and just this whole, if we're going closer and closer to science and technology, where there is some misconception about the nature of our interconnectedness. Do you think Buddhism can survive? Because we are definitely rushing towards two things: artificial intelligence and becoming a multiplanetary species. And when you look into some of the theoretical science behind that, there doesn't seem to be any understanding or discussion of a consciousness, although these quantum physicists believe that their string theory is going to explain, quote unquote, the theory of everything. So I'm just wondering, since humanity is encountering a pandemic moment, maybe even apocalyptic one, in my heart of hearts, I would, if I'm going to have to be reborn.
I'm sorry, I lost you. You were inaudible after.
What do you think?
Okay. Okay. The last part was inaudible to me.
The last part is the idea of being reborn, is being reborn into some kind of multi-planetary, kind of almost Star Trek world. My hope for myself and sentient beings is that there's a possibility to do our practices and to continue to practice and cultivate compassion and wisdom. Do you see that happening?
Okay. So I'm not very well equipped with I don't know what you meant by interplanetary species. Does that mean like, okay, maybe I will let you explain that.
Yeah, it's like literally they're trying to colonize Mars. So they believe this is SpaceX, this is China, this is, so we're trying to get to Mars. So if this world, Earth, becomes inhabitable, we can just have a 2-day shuttle ride. And this is happening within this time window for this is a lot sooner than people may expect. That's why we have NASA and SpaceX just launching this week. We have a race for Mars that is us and NASA. It is China and Russia, and we've aligned ourselves with SpaceX. And there's not a lot of room in if you study SpaceX for consciousness, compassion, and wisdom. I am concerned about the future in the idea of our celebrating the birth and the liberation and enlightenment of Shakyamuni Buddha. What is to happen?
Right. Okay. So first thing first. Even though it may not be in the same meaning and in the same term, Buddhism does accept or assert the existence of interplanetary species, in the sense that this is not the only world. We talk about. Even though it's a quite small number compared to what the science say, we say Zamling Chawachaya, which is 400,000 billion universes. So that's what we say in the text. So when we talk about the universe, it's actually much more vast than that, right? It's kind of like incountable, infinite sort of, like when we talk about galaxy and so, yeah. Anyway, so the world as we know it, we call it Jambudvipa in the Sanskrit, or Jambuling in Tibetan. There's another world. I mean, okay. So we do assert the existence of interplanetary species. So this is not the only world. So maybe, I don't know if it's Mars or not, but we do assert the existence of other. And when we die, let's say when we die from this planet, we will be reborn in other planets. That is also possible. But as your question is regarding, like, the human species, sort of immigrating to other planets. So I think Buddhism will play a huge role, especially, and I think His Holiness also sees that, and that is why he envisioned the separation of, like you have the separation of church and state in the West. His Holiness sort of envisioned what is called the separation of Buddhist philosophy, Buddhist science, and Buddhist religion. So the Buddhist philosophy is the philosophy of the application, the understanding and application of reality, and how we perceive them, and so on and so forth, like we just discussed here, in the terms of the ultimate bodhicitta. Then the Buddhist science, of course, how the mental mental factors, or how our the framework of our mind. That is the science aspect, and then the Buddhist religion aspect, which is devotion to the Buddha and this, believing into afterlife and all these things. So His Holiness always says the last part is Buddhist personal business. So science has nothing to do with that. But the other two parts, it's very, very relevant in today's time, and that is these. When we separate these three, and in the first two, we have a huge common ground with science, because obviously science is also. I mean, it differs. Science is looking for fact, right? It depends on who is sponsoring that particular scientific study for the result to come. That's another matter. And what we invent scientifically, that also depends on who funds what, right? So that is we have such a huge development on nuclear weapons and other things. But then when a pandemic like this, I mean, even though it's such a simple sort of fever, we have no medicine for it. We don't know how to deal with that, and we are losing hundreds of thousands of lives every day. But then we have, as far as destruction of lives is concerned, we have such a huge the arsenal of tools, of weapons. When it comes to saving lives, it's that is true. But the thing is, we see that a lot of people, I mean, the whole world is paying attention to these kind of things. And even though unlike earlier times when the leaders are, not easy to expose, we are talking in the terms of like internet, and we're talking about citizen, what do we call that? Citizen journalism, right? So like people can report everything. So if somebody is trying to lie, or somebody, even we always try to expose. A number of times we expose the mainstream medias for doing this and that, for convoluting convoluting the facts. So so we can see from that even though the mainstream media is portraying a certain aspect of information, the mainstream people are not fooled so easily. So we see that we see a surge of people who are really concerned about other people's well-being, and so like what's going on on top of in addition to what's happening with the pandemic, what's happening in America recently. We see a wake of the awakened and concerned people talking for the rights of the Black people, and so on and so forth. So we see that everyone is being aware, and that awareness. It's not just awareness. It is not a stagnant awareness that something is happening. Okay, and then you swipe left. It's not like that. People are aware of the situation, and then they're writing something about it, they're posting it, they're sharing the news on social media and everything, which means they're concerned. So the compassion is there, and so there's a surge.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes, I see exactly what you're saying, that it's really up to each of us to continue.
Well,
and not be misled.
And that I'm very optimistic. I really have huge faith. I'm very optimistic, and I'm very
Beautiful.
I have a huge faith in humanity. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Welcome. So we have 5 minutes. Any last words? Any last questions? Or then
I have one question. This is Natalie.
Please. Hi, Natalie.
Hi. On the part where where the text said at the end of the middle section about transforming the three objects, become the three poisons into the three virtues. Yeah. So, and then there was the example given in the text that when attachment arises, and then taking in the attachment of all sentient beings.
Yes.
So when you do that, then you said we consume it, under our control, and then we transmute it. what is the actual, where does the actual transmuting into the virtue happen in that case? Are you then turning it in sort of like a giving and taking and sending back virtue out to those sentient beings, or is it simply a matter of taking it in and transmuting it within, and then that's it?
Right, very good question. So when you transmute the negativities that sentient beings experience and then consume them and transmute it, what happens is the conversion of negativity is, you can convert negativity into positivity. You can only convert negativity into positivity or positivity into negativity. So there's only two options. So when you convert negativity into positivity, or in other words, into a virtuous substance, or what we call a virtuous imprint. So when you transmute one negative force, that leaves an imprint, what we call a virtuous imprint. And that imprint is sort of left, that imprint is implanted or left on our what we call mental continuum, or the stream of mind. So you can dedicate that mentally to other sentient beings, but usually it's left open your own mind. So we always say there is a, negativity has one positive quality. We always say sin has one positive quality, and that is the quality of being the possibility. Sorry, the quality of convertibility. So the fact that negativity can be converted is a big factor. So when we convert the negativity, it is transformed into a positivity. In other words, it is positive. It becomes a positive imprint, a virtuous imprint, a wholesome imprint, and that imprint is like a seed, and it is implanted on your mental continuum. And as you go with your life, and depending on the situation, depending on the conditions, these seed will give rise. These seed will grow, materialize into fruits, into the saplings and trees and fruits of labor, good one or bad one. Yeah. So it is embedded. It actually happens within your mind stream, and then it remains in your mental continuum.
Well, thank you.
You're most welcome. Okay, so I think we can conclude here, because we have only 2 minutes left. So let's dedicate this for the sake of all sentient beings. Changju semjo rimbo ma ye panam kejo keba nyamba meba yang kone kondo pewara sho. Dedicate for the long life of His Holiness and all the great teachers. Kanji Rave Korwe Shingan Su Pendan Dewa Malu Chongwe Jinre Sewa Tenzin Kyamso Chabe Sinde Bardo Dengyu Chi. One line of Mixima. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great weekend.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
Thank you.
Thank you.